Good evening. We're just about to start, but I wanted first of all to thank all of you for being here. It helps me a lot to have some real bodies nearby to talk to. If you have questions, please feel free to participate in any way that you can. We've never done this before, but I think it's going to be fine. I'm so grateful to my staff for working so hard to make this happen. Let you, for those of you who are not from Christchurch, Glendale, the restrooms are right behind the screen. Just go that way. And I will thank Christchurch, Glendale once we're online. So are we ready to start?
Yep. Hang on 1 minute. Okay.
All right, here we are. Good evening, Diocese of Southern Ohio.
Good evening.
Welcome to PreConvention 2018. This is the first time we have used technology to do one hearing simultaneously in 4 locations. I am speaking to you from Christchurch, Glendale, on the outskirts of Cincinnati, where a number of delegates and others are gathered. And I'd like at this time to thank David Pfaff and the good people of Christchurch, Glendale for hosting us. There are actually a lot of real people here in front of you, which is somewhat comforting. But I know we have many fellow leaders gathered at St. Paul's Oakwood in the Dayton area, at St. Philip's Columbus, and at St. James Zanesville. There may also be people tuning in from home. It is important that we are gathered together this evening in mind and spirit. In a sense, this is the beginning of the convention that will take place in a few short weeks under a big tent at Proctor. Pray for good weather. This evening we have a chance to discuss the resolutions coming before convention. There are 4 of them. To look at the budget that will be presented at convention. To be clear about the elected positions people are running for. And to learn a bit about becoming beloved community. And if you haven't heard about that yet, becoming beloved community is a reference to Dr. Martin Luther King's idea of how we are called not only to live into the kingdom of God, but to work towards making that kingdom present here and now. And our presiding Bishop, Michael Curry, has challenged the Episcopal Church to live into beloved community in many ways. And so we already have a lot of plans afoot in this diocese, and we'll have a short video to introduce you to some of that. That's a lot, but we should get through it by 8:30. Before we launch in, let's steady ourselves in prayer. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. Almighty and everlasting God, by whose Spirit the whole body of your faithful people is governed and sanctified, receive our supplications and prayers which we offer before you for all members of your holy church, that in their vocation and ministry they may truly and devoutly serve you. Through our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. And let me just add my thanks to my staff who have worked so hard to make this work. And many of them are at various locations tonight, making sure that you are able to handle this challenge for yourselves. And without further ado, I'm going to invite David Dreisbach, who is our Director of Communications, to sort of lead you through the technological management of this evening. Thank you. Thank you, David.
Thank you, everybody. First off, this isn't the Emmys, or the Grammys, or the Academy Awards. So we may have technical difficulties, so all of you out there who are streaming this, just have a little patience with us. This camera seems to be freezing up a little bit, and we just get it unfrozen every time it does. So forgive us if there's these little jerks by little jerk, I'm not talking about me. Little jerks in the thing. So have patience. My text number for all of you out there in remote locations is 513-545-0184. For some reason you stop being able to hear it, send me a text and we'll try to fix it, okay?
Say it again.
Say it again.
513, I didn't really want to. 513-545-0184. Now, I see people in this room writing it down, but you can just come talk to me. So, for all the remote locations, what we've told people to do is just stay clear of your cameras and just watch what's being projected. If you have a question, sit down in front of the laptop at your location, and when we will call on you when it's appropriate for you to be able to ask that question. You'll know that it's your turn because you'll see your face pop up on the big screen. Okay. We are also recording this, so if you want to see it again, or if you're again in your remote location and something throws up a little bit and you missed a word or two, you can go back to the recording. So that should be online tomorrow, and get there through our website. We have a website, it's dsoconnections.org. No, DSO convention.org. dsocconvention.org. On that website, there is a form. If you have questions, you can ask them through that form. And not only tonight, but tomorrow or going forward. So if you watch it again and you have a question, just send a question to that. So basically, for all things convention, dsocconvention.org. Couple things, as you know, the convention is going to be one day this year. It's on November 3rd. Since we are going to try to cram everything to one day, the check-in on the 3rd is at 7 o'clock in the morning. I would encourage you to be there earlier on time because we're trying to steer through. Some of you know there's going to be a sort of a pre-convention party the night before, on the Friday before. We'll have check-in then too at 4:30 through 6. 4:30 through 6. So if you are there on Friday, it would behoove you to check in on Friday rather than wait till the morning to you're all legal. Also, we're going to have electronic voting again this year, and the voting will go live at 10:45 on Saturday morning, so you don't have to wait for somebody to announce it. It will just go live and do that. We will have a booth there, like we have in years past. If you have any problems with the technology while you're there, like we're having right now, you have it. There you go. If you have any trouble with technology while you're at convention, come back to the convention booth or the connection booth, and we'll be able to get you there. I think that's everything. Does anybody have any questions before I turn it over? I'll show you a video. Everybody cool? Sure. All right. Thank you.
So I mentioned Becoming Beloved Community. We have a Becoming Beloved Community Task Force, headed by Erica Mansfield, Cherie Patrick, and Jane Gertson. Cherie and Maribot have produced a short 5-minute video to just sort of begin to introduce us to the work that's ahead. So we'll put that on the screen.
Well, some people may have heard that Becoming Beloved Community is a program of the Episcopal Church. And the Episcopal Church did introduce an initiative called Becoming Beloved Community in May of 2017. And it has given us a lot of rich material to use on this journey that we're on. It's really intended to be a framework that each diocese can use to figure out how to do this work in its own diocese, and then how each congregation to figure out how it can best be lived out in their neighborhood, in their congregation, and then each individual. So a lot of this is about learning, but it's also about practice, and they feed each other. So that's what we're trying to do in bringing this to our diocese and to our congregations and to individuals. Mm-hmm. Provide training opportunities and also places to practice so that we just get better at it. Mm-hmm. And also, yes, places are doing beloved community. There are sparks of light where beloved community ignites. Let's share those with each other so that we can learn from each other, form a network of people who are supporting each other until it's our way of life.
So I think that's it, right? It's a way of life, and I think it's the way of life that God has intended for us at the beginning, right? So this does have some biblical foundation, and since I'm not a theologian, I'm not going to get into all of that, but there is this is what God has called us to do. So it is this way of life that allows us, again, to live into that that person that we're supposed to be. It allows us to be that authentic person. It allows me to grow to my full capacity, right? Because when my growth is stunted because of hate, whether it's hate for someone else or an internalized hate, my growth is stunted, and I have separated myself from God. So for me, I see it also as not only heaven on earth, but an opportunity to really reconnect with God and connect with other people, right? It's God's call.
Become more whole.
Keep going back to practice, right? And I think that's one of the things that is missing, that keeps us from being able to really live this out, because there is such a fear of saying the wrong thing or being seen as doing something that is not the right thing. We are afraid to speak out. That silence that you mentioned before, that practice, the ability to sit in a room, to sit down like this, right, and to be able to make mistakes, but know that your mistake is done in a place where there will not be this shame that's placed upon you. It will be a place where you can make a mistake and move forward. Making mistakes is how we learn, right? If we were all perfect, we wouldn't have anything to work on. And so, in our imperfection, we get to practice and clean things up and live out this call that God has called us to.
Practice builds relationships of trust. Mm-hmm. And then instead of being afraid that we're going to say the wrong thing, we can say something gently and deliberately. And we can receive coaching. We can hear, that's harmful to me because of this, and explanation. And then next time, maybe we can use a different word. Mm-hmm. Or we'll at least remember why what we're thinking of saying might be harmful. Mm-hmm. Much more sensitive.
And I also know that this work it's transformative, right? And transformation takes a long time,
yes.
A very long time. And so I look through this lens of something that I heard at General Convention was after God declared the work that He had done very good. We have again been trying to compete with God, and so in that competition we have been malformed, right? So malformation, and our work now is taking that malformation and moving to a place of formation. That is a subtractive exercise. So we're peeling off the layers of all that ugliness that has built up because of the separation that we've had from God, and then that formation leads to transformation.
And the church does say long-term commitment to racial healing, reconciliation, and justice. Mm-hmm. And this isn't a one-year initiative. Mm-hmm. We're just going to keep at it. Mm-hmm. But we're taking steps now mm-hmm. to be in right relationship, to find another way to be. Mm-hmm. And it is the way of love, which, as Bishop Curry has introduced, practices for a Jesus-centered life mm-hmm. to help us with this. As I said, there are many tools for us to use. Mm-hmm. So it's the way of love and the way of life. As a Christian, as a follower of Jesus, this is what healers and reconcilers and justice makers are in the world, followers of Jesus. And all of this is for us to learn and practice to become more healers and reconcilers and justice makers in the world.
And to have some ability that allows you to see that, right? Some ability to reflect, but also to be okay with that. You know, that's a mistake. And those are the kinds of things that we've been doing. So it's a mistake and move on, right?
Inch by inch.
Inch by inch.
And just do a little bit better next time.
Right. We have to have that reflection, that ability to look critically at what's happening in our hearts and our minds and our thoughts. Yeah.
I am really excited about this Becoming Beloved Community Initiative, which is really an extension of our work on Exodus last year and our reading together of Luke and the sequel Acts this coming year, which is basically the New Testament of Exodus. As we continue to, as I like to say, follow Jesus into the neighborhood, and to learn how to engage and converse and walk together with people that we think we know well now, and people that we don't know so well. That's what it is to be the church. And having said that, I would like to introduce the next portion of our evening together, which is to look at the various positions that people are willing to stand to be elected for, because we cannot do the work of Beloved Community and Exodus unless we have a wide and broad field of leaders that are diverse and bring many gifts. Before I invite John Boss, who is the president of our trustees of the diocese, to come forward and sort of lead us through the positions that are being open for election, and asking Julie Murray, who's usually behind the camera right now, if she would come forward and just make sure that we all know how to find the nomination slate online. Can you come forward, Julie? Julie is our Associate Director of Communications.
Hello. If you brought a device with you tonight, and you can go ahead and pull it up now, but we're also going to show it up here on the screen, so you don't really need to. The web address again is dsoconvention.org. And when you get to the main screen of that website, there's a black bar across the top. That's the menu. And you'll see everything you need up there. Budget, nominations, resolutions, the link to this pre-convention meeting, and any journal archives in case you need to look back on another previous year if you have a question. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
So if you click on nominations, this is the page that you'll get.
Thank you, Julie. And now if John Boss will come forward, thank you.
Thank you, Bishop, and thanks to Julie and the communications people who have allowed us to use change in technology. You remember in the past, because everything was written, we had to cut off the nominations at the end of September. Last year we changed it, recognizing the technology we have. The only challenge is to make sure it gets on the ballot. So we go up to October 31st. So if you're still interested in running, or if you understand that some of the openings are still there, I'm talking about to do it, please do step forward. My thanks to all of those who have stepped forward so far, and thanks to the nominating committee that's made my job a lot easier. The information you have here, you also, if you're at one of our meetings tonight, there is a packet with the details there that'll help you out. And let me go through that a little bit to let you know where we are. So the budget committee lay 1 3-year term. We have a nominee, Dr. Priestmack, St. Mark's Upper Arlington. We do not yet have a budget committee clergy person for a 3-year term. So that's an opening for my clergy friends, if you would be willing to step forward. That's an important part of what we do. And it's a committee of diocesan council. For diocesan council, we need to elect 2 clergy for a 3-year term. The Reverend Seth Weimer, All Saints of Albany, is the one we have. I think we have another one, but not yet. So it's a clergy person again. We're looking for somebody to serve on diocesan council for a 3-year term. For diocesan council, 3-year term,
John, somebody just text asked if you speak a little slower.
Will do. For diocesan council, for technology, for diocesan council, laypersons, for 3-year term. Kathy Jones, Christ Church, Cincinnati, Christ Church Cathedral. William, we know him as Bill, Lucas, St. Patrick, Lebanon. Wendell Mulford, All Saints, Pleasant Ridge, and Harold Patrick, St. Matthew, Western Middle. For the disciplinary board, some recall that a couple of years ago, we elected 5 people all at one time. That was a little difficult because their terms all came up. So starting this year, we're going to be doing staggered terms, working that way through. So we do have an opening this year for a clergy person with a 3-year term. And Reverend Kevin Beasley, All Saints in Albany, has stepped forward and had his name be nominated. For Episcopal Community Services Board, we elect 3 clergy or lay for 3-year terms. We have Kimberly Nelson, a layperson from St. Patrick, Lebanon. David Jones, a layperson from St. James, Pickle. And James Murray, St. Edward's, Whitehall, also a layperson. For standing committee, we normally elect 1 clergy person and 1 layperson each year for the term. This year we had an unexpired term. For the full 3-year clergy position, the Reverend Philip Duvall, Church of Redeemer, Cincinnati. The unexpired 2-year term, the Reverend Charles Graves IV, Church of the Advent in Cincinnati, and the Reverend Scott Gunn, Christ Church Cathedral, Cincinnati. For standing committee lay, John Lane, Christ Church Cathedral, Cincinnati, and Larry Hayes, St. Andrews, Pickering. For trustee of the diocese, and this person's a clergy person, he's the host for tonight, Reverend David Taft, Christ Church, Glendale. Now, we changed the rules in the canons several years ago so we could have 2 clergy of the 5 trustees of the diocese. Reverend George Glazer is already a trustee, so we can only elect 1 clergy person at this point in time, and Reverend David Taft has submitted his name. We have an unexpired term as a layperson, Mike Krug, Church of the Redeemer in Cincinnati. We are still looking for a trustee, lay or clergy person, for a 5-year term for trustee of the Church Foundation. And that's the group that makes grants for repairs and other things in our congregation. It's an extremely important position, and we need somebody to step forward, either lay or clergy person. The Proctor Center Board of Directors, lay or clergy for a 3-year term, 1 person. William Bill Lewis, St. Patrick's, Lebanon, or the Reverend Bruce Smith, St. James, Columbus. Now, remember what I said earlier. If you still have time to step forward, and volunteer. And it'll make my job a lot easier if you do that. Otherwise, and you can do that at convention time, but not for positions for which we have someone. If we did not have, as we don't have right now, somebody for trustee of church foundation, we could do that. There's a process for that. But it's rather difficult because then people will not have the information about you or what your capabilities are, what your interests are. And it's a little bit of a challenge because we have to get it on the electronic ballot. So I would encourage you to please step forward. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. We now move to consideration of the resolutions, the 3 resolutions that are coming before our convention. And at this point, for sure, there may be questions. And there may be questions that are left over from what we've talked about so far. So since I'm not quite sure how we do that, I've asked David Dreisbach if he can come forward and just tell us how we can submit questions tonight in real time.
Yes, sorry. There's several ways. I'm been told I need to speak slower. There are several ways that you can submit questions. If you're in one of the 4 locations or 3 locations other than this, you can just go to the computer that is monitoring this and sit down in front of it. When we see you, we'll call on you. If you're not in one of those locations, you can go to the connection or the convention website, dsoconvention.org, and there's a form you can fill out that will come to us. Or you can text me at 513-545-0184. And even if you think of something later after this is finished, go ahead and use the form that's online and somebody will get back to you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David. This business of speaking more slowly reminds me of meetings of the House of Bishops, because we always have translators who are translating into Spanish and Haitian Creole, and bishops tend to talk fast. So we're always being reminded to slow down. So I'll try to also obey that principle. The first resolution to be considered is R201801, to dissolve the union between St. Andrew's Dayton and the Convention of the Diocese of Southern Ohio. And Kathy Baggett, who is in the Columbus area and is a member of our standing committee, is prepared to introduce that to us.
On behalf of the Standing Committee, I want to introduce Resolution R201801. As the Bishop indicated, this dissolves the union between Andrews Dayton and the Convention of the Diocese of Southern Ohio. And as indicated in the resolution, this requires a 2/3 vote of each order in order to accept this resolution.
If I may just add a few words. About a year, perhaps a year and a half ago, the vestry of St. Andrews in Dayton approached my office to say that they felt they were no longer able to carry on. I just want to be really clear, this is not a closure of a parish by me or anybody else, but it has been part of a long process of discernment on the part of the leadership and the people of St. Andrews to be able to devote themselves in other ways to the service of
Bishop, could you speak up a little bit?
Yes, do I need to say that over again?
They're saying they're having trouble hearing you.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to be really clear that this closure of St. Andrews in Dayton is something that comes out of a request of the St. Andrews itself. And I'm hoping, I don't usually make remarks about resolutions. I try to remain neutral always, but in this case, I'm going to say that I am going to hope that we are all willing and able to support these good people in their need to be able to move on to the next chapter in their life of discipleship, both separately or together, and to allow that to happen with appropriate grief at our convention, but also with appropriate joy in the power of resurrection, which is always ours in Jesus Christ. Thank you, Kathy, so much for introducing that resolution. Is it all right for me to proceed?
Yes.
I am leaning on the body language of the people in this room. The next resolution we'll be looking at is R201802, funding for church planting, which will be introduced by the Reverend Ben Phillips, rector of St. George's in Dayton.
I think you're on.
Okay. It's not showing up on our screen here, so I couldn't tell if it was time to start talking yet or not.
Could you please switch the host? No.
There we go.
Okay. Okay.
Too close. All right. Let's fix that. There we go. Well, good evening, everyone. I am here to present this resolution on funding for church planting that I think comes at a very timely point in the life of our diocese in terms of becoming the beloved community, but also starting new communities that are to be beloved. And following in the wake of actions taken at General Convention, calling for nationwide efforts to church plant and a significant amount of budget funding at the national level for church planting, we believe that it's time for the Diocese of Southern Ohio to take a fresh approach and invest fresh resources into the efforts of church planting. We have a number of church plants that are already in process. We also have a lot of investment in worshiping communities through fresh expressions. And some of these communities are poised to transition to potentially become parishes. But there's need for funding and structures to help foster that process. And so this resolution is intended to help begin that process, not necessarily in a definitive way. The co-sponsors and I are very aware that this is characterized somewhat by building the bicycle as we ride it, but this is at least a starting point and calls for funding to begin in 2020 and carries a fairly broad support from clergy all over the diocese. And I'm very excited to have the opportunity to present this, so thank you. So is that the online equivalent of dropping the mic?
I think so.
And now I'm going to invite Sherry Bridges Patrick to introduce R201803, Becoming Beloved Community.
One second. All right, you're on.
No, he's not.
Yep.
I think I'm muted. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I am Cherie Brutus Patrick, and I am a co-convener of the Becoming Beloved Community Task Force along with Maribel Mansfield. I'm presenting tonight on behalf of the task force on resolution 2018-03. And this resolution was started in January of 2018 to implement Becoming Beloved Community, the initiative here. And we've made some progress on building this community. We have received many resources from the Episcopal Church, and we're discerning ways to use them. We're also looking at the task force and within the diocese to find expertise to assist us with this. But we are truly committed to this work. We see it as a mind-heart connection. We also see that some of us are cognitively ready, but we have to really work on our hearts and our ability to be brave and courageous in this work. I think we will plan to present training programs and assist churches in their needs. We will help churches discern what kinds of resources they need for their particular communities. So we will serve as a resource to all churches within the diocese to make this work happen. It is a process, a lifelong process, and we are building the bridge as we walk on it. And I think that is all that I have.
Thank you, Cherie. And I believe that you are speaking to us from California. Is that right?
I am speaking to you from the desert of Palm Springs in California.
Thank you very much. And thanks also to Kathy Baggett and to Ben for their presentations of the other two resolutions. So now we come to the presentation of the budget. David Robinson is on business elsewhere for us, so he's not able to be with us, but has prepared a video to present the budget to all of us. And Rob Krantz, who is the treasurer of the diocese, is prepared to expatiate on that and answer any questions that you may have. But before we do that, I should ask, are there any questions that have come in regarding the resolutions?
Not regarding the resolutions.
Are there others?
There are.
Should we look at them now or should we wait a little bit longer? What is your?
I actually have a question about the resolution.
Very good.
So in reading the material in the handout about the background information from the National Church, it appears that Beloved Community was originally intended to be about racial justice. But am I understanding that Beloved Community is now expanding on the national level and in this diocese to be broader and wider than that?
May I respond to that? It is Presiding Bishop Michael Curry has urged us forward in this direction. And his view is certainly he sees racial reconciliation at the heart of the beloved community. But he also sees creation care, stewardship of the planet, and evangelism as essentially connected to the reconciliation across all possible lines.
Okay.
Does that answer your question? Now, once again, Julie, are there questions that we should be addressing now, or are there some that maybe wait until after the budget?
They can wait.
Okay.
They're just general questions.
Okay. So we will then watch David Robinson's video now, and then field questions regarding the budget, and then we'll take some time to field any other questions that have come in already or will have come in by then. And we're doing really well time-wise. I think maybe doing something technologically challenging shortens the time of these meetings.
Good evening. I'm David Robinson. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Diocese of Southern Ohio, and I'm here this evening to speak with you about the 2019 budget year. First, let me apologize for not being there with you this evening. I serve on the Board of Trustees for St. Augustine University. That's an Episcopal university in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm attending a meeting as it relates to their continued accreditation. And secondly, I serve on the board of Church Investment Group, and that is an entity that works with parishes and with dioceses and other Episcopal organizations to pool investments and pool their endowments to get scale, and then to take those to the marketplace and invest and get and invest in some pretty diverse opportunities and at lower fees. So I apologize again for not being with you this evening, but I'm serving on behalf of the church in those two other capacities. I'd like to speak with you this evening about the 2019 budget. This year, as always, the task of the Budget Committee is to take in applications and review the operations of the diocese, and then to develop a budget and return that budget to Diocesan Council, which then moves that budget forward for Convention to adopt. This year, the Budget Committee worked to align the mission of the diocese and the budget. So a lot of work and a lot of effort was placed in developing a budget application that would appropriately ask questions of the budget applicants in order to ensure that the work of those entities aligned with the ministry, the missions, and the mission of the diocese. The Budget Committee set forward to do that, looking at three different items in order to focus our attention. First is the vision statement. Diocesan Council did a lot of work earlier this year in developing a vision statement for the diocese. And the budget application asked for applicants to look at the vision statement and determine how their mission and their work fit within that vision statement. And so the budget application asked for those applications to consider the vision statement in their work. Secondly, the budget application asked for applicants to think about the work of the church and the Jesus movement, and to consider the Jesus movement and how they approach their ministry and mission through their budget application. And the Jesus movement looks to focus attention on evangelism, reconciliation, and creation care. The third and probably the largest component by which the budget application asks applicants to consider the work that they do is through the ministry and the lens of becoming beloved community. Earlier in the year, a lot of work was done at General Convention to think about becoming beloved community and what that meant for the church. Additionally, here in the Diocese of Southern Ohio, we look to think about becoming beloved community. A task force has been created and a lot of work has been done thinking about how do we as the Diocese of Southern Ohio become beloved community. And as well as at the local level, there are parishes that are doing this work as well. So the budget asked several questions of the applicants to consider becoming how their work self-identified itself as becoming beloved community and how their work expressed that. So the budget application was developed by the Budget Committee and revised, and a lot of effort was done on the front end of that process to make that happen. Special thanks to the Budget Committee and its chair, Harold Patrick, and then a special thanks to Patrick Reachmack, who's on the committee, who did a lot of work as it related to compiling that budget application, as well as a lot of supplemental documents that were used during the process. As we look at the revenues on the budget for 2019, we understand that there are several resources that we have from a revenue standpoint. First, of course, is the mission share. And we are currently in the third year of our 5-year formula. This year, the Budget Committee took that estimate they took the estimate from the 2019 mission share formula as a basis for the revenue source for mission share for the upcoming year. We understand that the mission share formula is developed in large part using the information coming out of the parochial reports. The Finance Committee this year, as well as last year, has taken a lot of time in reviewing those parochial reports. We understand that the information in the parochial reports needs to be correct because the formula is so dependent on that. And so there have been a few opportunities in which the Budget Committee has gone back to different parishes to validate and to determine that the information on those parochial reports was correct. Because it's very important to make sure that that happens, because that formula information drives all of the formula, and so if one parish reports incorrectly, it impacts all of the parishes. So we want to make sure that the information that is reported on the parochial report is the correct information, because it's so important to the formula, the mission share formula. In addition to mission share, there's some investment income, facility rental income, some fees that we charge, as well as some grant resources that are available that make up the consolidated operating budget. As we turn to the expense side and the budget applications that came in, we are particularly proud to and happy to announce again that the Diocese of Southern Ohio has included in its budget 100% of the ask from the Domestic, Foreign, and Missionary Society, the national church. So there's a formula each year that is put in place at General Convention, actually once every 3 years, that determines a percentage and other formula aspects for that contribution to the Episcopal Church. And each year, Southern Ohio pays the full asking, and the 2019 year is no different. In addition to that, there are several new funding opportunities. There is a new church start that is included in the budget for 2019, and it is a Latino ministry church start that is happening in the Cincinnati area, in the Forest Park area of Cincinnati. It's kind of on the northwest area of Cincinnati. There's a pretty significant Hispanic population in that area, and we feel that that's a great opportunity to have a new church start. It's still in its exploratory formation, but there is money included in the budget for that. There's mission share resources available. There are proctor funds that are available in the 2019 budget, as well as some monies from a UTO grant that is from an exploratory standpoint to help determine and develop this new ministry start, this Latino ministry start in the Forest Park area of Cincinnati. Additionally, there are new monies included in the budget as it relates to becoming beloved community. There is a lot of formation that takes place as it relates to that, and so there is money included in the budget for those workshops, those seminars, those collaborative efforts in order to bring people together to talk about becoming beloved community and to live into that. Additionally, the task force of Becoming Beloved Community has asked for funding for grant opportunities. So if at a parish or at another entity or a joint effort, it is would like to put on some kind of initiative, some kind of workshop, some kind of seminar as it relates to Becoming Beloved Community, those entities and those parishes have an opportunity to receive funding from the Becoming Beloved Community Task Force in order to move forward those initiatives, that workshop or that seminar. And there will be an application that is available through that task force for those kinds of opportunities, and there's money included in the budget for that new initiative. Also in 2019, there have been some staffing changes. You know, just annually there are retirements, there are resignations, there are transfers and placements. So the budget includes the shifting of those staffing opportunities, positions that are moving from part-time or full-time to vice versa. And so all those changes have been recorded and included in this budget year. The budget includes financing and resources for the Proctor Center. The Proctor Center receives quite a significant amount of money from the Mission Share budget as well as the William Cooper Proctor budget for operational costs, for summer camp, and for formation opportunities. The Proctor Center is really getting engaged in its own formation offerings, and so there's funding in the budget to help the Proctor Center continue its operations. The 2019 budget includes funding for formation. There are lots of opportunities. The Big Read 2, there are monies in the budget for clergy days and other lay and clergy formation. There's money in the budget for the Commission on Ministry to operate. And so those funding opportunities are there in the budget for 2019 as well. And as always, we see the budget continues to have its normal operating costs for utilities and insurance and health insurance and those kinds of things. So all of that makes up the 2019 budget from an expense standpoint. Lots of standard things that are included in the budget, but lots of new opportunities that are included in the 2019 year as well. If I could just go back, and so the Budget Committee took this year and tried to balance what the available resources were in relation to what the budget applications and the requests for funds were. This year, from a Mission Share standpoint, we saw a slight uptick in the amount of income that was available from Mission Share. As you recall, over the last 3 or 4 years, the Mission Share income to the diocese had been declining. The 2019 year saw a slight increase for the year, so we're really happy about that we have opportunities to do new and creative and exciting things. I thank you for your time. As always, if you have any questions, you can certainly give me a call or send me an email. And this evening, there are opportunities for questions about the budget. In some of your local areas, there are representatives from the Budget Committee who will be available to answer any live questions that you have this evening. And I would ask that you take that opportunity, or this opportunity, to ask questions within this general open format. But certainly you have an opportunity at convention, and you have an opportunity to ask those questions offline with me by way of phone or by way of email. I thank you for your time. I hope that you have a greater understanding of the 2019 budget, and we look forward to seeing you all at convention. Thank you.
So the floor.
Give me 1 second, get you online, Bishop.
quick question.
Mm.
David Robinson said that there were people available around the diocese to answer questions live. Will we be hearing those questions also, or is it happening?
I think just if they just want to ask at those locations.
Right, well, I am grateful to Rob Krantz for being here with us tonight. Rob is the treasurer of our diocese, and he can answer any questions we have locally here or from anywhere in the diocese. Thanks.
The key addition being try to answer any questions you may have.
I was just a little bit confused on the mission share. Will that mission share from St. Andrew's Episcopal in Dayton in 2019, which is in the budget, still be coming in if St. Andrew's Dayton is separating itself?
I do not believe so.
Can people hear the question?
The question is, in the detail of mission share income, St. Andrew's Dayton is listed as one of the sources, and if they're being, what's the proper term? Disbanded or whatever.
I don't know the proper term.
Whatever, then would their money be coming back? I believe the answer is no, it would not, but it's not going to be a big impact on the budget, about $6,000. So, but I do not believe we'll receive that money if the decision is made to spend it. Yes, sir.
You talked about the mission statement. Where can we find that, since it became such a key criteria for judging where the money goes? Is that a long statement, or is it something?
The vision statement? It should be. Did everybody receive this package of information? It's on the second, second sentence down, second paragraph.
Thank you.
Certainly, John.
Could you repeat the question?
The question was, where can we see the vision statement that was used as a kind of guiding influence for the development of the budget? And it's on the first page of the package labeled 2019 budget narrative, the top of the page.
It's also online at DSOconvention.org.
Oh, there we go. That too. It's also at DSOconvention.org. Any other questions?
Zanesville has a question.
I'm just being nosy, but on the income, the line 3710X, the price for people, I mean, that wasn't there before. Why are they, is that a grant?
Well, no, this is,
would you repeat the question, please?
The question is on the income statement at the top of the page labeled 2019 consolidated budget draft. There's a line labeled 3710X Collaboration Christchurch Cathedral that shows $140,201.67 of income. And the question was, where did that come from? Why is it here? And the answer to that question is earlier in the package, as David discussed the shared staffing with the diocese, with the cathedral. And if you look at the bottom of page 2, right below the squiggly line chart, at the bottom of the page it shows that between the cathedral and the
Bishop's office.
Bishop's office, thank you.
Trying to get away from saying, making diocese and bishop's office synonymous.
I'm much better at the numbers than I am using the proper terminology. So the bishop's office and the cathedral together spent $280,000 in 2 shared full-time positions. And then half of that is being paid by the cathedral to the bishop's office, which is the $140,201. Now, we could have shown just half of the net expenses, but the way we put the budget together, we showed the revenue as the revenue, and then all of the expenses down below. So if you look at the line items corresponding to the salaries in a couple of places, you'll see there's a big jump from last year to next year, and that's where the expenses are. Any other questions?
We have.
Hello.
Question.
Hello?
Yes, hang on. Hi, Zanesville. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Whit Johnstone. I'm a member of Trinity Newark, lay delegate from Trinity Newark. I have a question about the new church planting resolution. Actually, two questions. The first is, that was mentioned that some of the fresh expressions are poised to become parishes. Some of us here are under the impression that the point of fresh expressions was that they wouldn't be trying to become parishes. And the other question is, will the creation of a budget for new church plants mean that churches that are currently getting some support from the diocese will have to go without that support starting in 2020?
Don't go too far away. Thank you for that question. The first half of your question, I think, is just a question of semantics. The word parish has a canonical meaning that I don't think that was what Ben was meaning when he said that we're thinking about fresh expressions that might become parishes. I think that could be rephrased to say fresh expressions that might be turning into more organized communities of faith. For instance, you might be a monastic community made up of conventicles that are striving to live a life of radical obedience to Christ in some new ways that might be evolving in the direction of something that is part of the future of the church and may look different from what we think about when we think about a parish. So it's very, very open-ended. With regard to the Latino ministry here in Cincinnati that Ben referenced, that began really as a homework club for kids. And then their parents started to come and were asking for help to learn English. And then that began to turn into an occasion for fellowship. And actually a lot of people from this parish in Glendale were involved in that development because some of the original inhabitants of the congregation that closed at their own request and then morphed into the Latino ministry came here to Glendale. So there's an interesting way in which the Holy Spirit has been at work here. As time has gone by, this community, largely made up of Spanish speakers, but also some native English speakers, has developed and begun to worship together. And now we have it has been a residence site for a recent seminary graduate who is fluent in Spanish and who has been helping them to figure out how they might become more of a worshiping community as well as a place simply for fellowship. So that's just an example of the way in which a fresh expression experiment, and fresh expressions is a very loose, purposely loose term, can begin to be a medium for the Holy Spirit to lead us in some new directions. I hope that answers the first part of your question. And I've talked so long that I can't remember the second half of the question. Oh yes, I do not think that supporting new initiatives, new possibilities for worship life and mission together is a zero-sum equation. We don't support new life by killing off old life. So we talk a lot on diocesan council and also on my executive staff about planting new things and replenishing and supporting old communities and help and seeing how the old and the new can work together to move us continually in the direction of beloved community.
Thank you. I appreciate your answer. That goes a long way towards reassuring me about the future of Trinity and some other small congregations. And also, thank you for telling the story of the Iglesia Episcopal Espiritu Santo, I believe that was the name.
So, and I just want to say one more thing. You're from Trinity Newark, which is an amazing example of courage and faith. Many people may not realize that Trinity Newark was no longer able to shore up its beautiful old building in the heart of Newark, Ohio, which would have cost so much money to be needed safe to be in. But they made the very difficult and courageous and faithful decision to tear that building down and to remain downtown in a more affordable and usable place for mission. And I'm very proud of you for doing that. You're just one example of many places in this diocese that are making difficult and creative and Christ-centered decisions. And I thank you for that.
Thank you, Bishop. I appreciate those words, as I think we're actually at several different meetings and some are watching online at home. I think all of us, I think, appreciate your saying that. We do. And I think my question has been very thoroughly answered. I appreciate that.
Did you have a question, Zanesville?
Yeah, their question. He thanked Bishop for the question for answering the question.
I'm just really confused right now.
Switch the. There he is. There he is. Dayton's down there on the right side.
Yeah, that's where I was at.
Yeah.
Might just bring Dayton up.
Hello, Dayton.
Brought some friends.
Okay. I think yeah, sorry.
But to echo David's point, not only is he available to answer questions if necessary, feel free to reach out to me as well. Thank you.
I don't think he was. If I see him, I'll bring him back.
We're just not sure whether we're supposed to get Ben back or not.
We'll try if he shows up on my magic. It's just late.
All right.
Yeah, are you taking questions now, Bishop?
Sure, I can take any questions.
I have a text. One's been texted to me if you'd like. Can someone explain whether St. Andrew's is staying as a church or closing? Are they planning to affiliate with a more conservative diocese?
No, they are not planning to affiliate with a more conservative diocese. This is not a schismatic move. It's just a small congregation that is requesting the permission of the larger diocesan family to stop being St. Andrews and to see what's next for them individually or collectively. Whenever, just a little polity lecture here, whenever a congregation wishes to be affiliated with the diocese, that affiliation has to be voted on by the diocesan convention. By the same token, when a congregation is facing closure, that also has to be voted on. Congregations in the Episcopal tradition are not autonomous. sort of. I mean, we're always a both and sort of tradition, but when push comes to shove, we are all committed to essential connection to one another, and therefore do not make decisions in disconnection from one another. So that is why there is this resolution that is coming before convention in November.
We have an email question from earlier today. There's actually two questions. The one doesn't really have anything to do with convention, so I don't know if you want to address it or not, but we do have a gather.
Sure.
Okay. I have heard that confirmation during an Episcopal visitation will only happen when Bishop Reithal is visiting a congregation. Is this true? What is the rationale?
Yes, it is true. This is a reference to visits by Bishop Rivera and Bishop Price, for which I'm very thankful, by the way, because they make it possible to have a bishop around more often than I can make it. It takes me about 2.5 years to get all around. I have been very pleased that we have begun a tradition of area confirmations, mostly during the Easter season, not to replace confirmations at the time of the diocesan bishop's presence, but as not only a supplement to those confirmations, but as an opportunity to experience confirmations that are not merely located in a particular parish, but allow congregants and confirmands from a number of congregations to come together. For me, that is a really important development. I think both ways of scheduling confirmations are important to the life and health of this diocese. Now, I have talked a lot with my fellow bishops, Bishop Rivera and Bishop Price, and they are very much on board with what I'm asking for. We all three of us know full well that if confirmations were permitted when they come to a parish, that would be the end of area confirmations. So we're trying to hold firm there, and also to remind people that the arrival of a bishop is not just for confirming. Bishops are not confirmation machines. So it is, I think, salubrious for us to be reminded that a visit by Bishop Price or Bishop Rivera, or me, sometimes there are visitations I do where there's nobody to be confirmed or to be received. They're still visitations. We are there to listen to you, to pray with you, to remind you of the larger life of the diocese, and to remind you of the whole communion of the body of Christ, of which we are all a part. Again, you'll think that I'm a broken record, but the Episcopal tradition is about connection. It's a lot of trouble being a diocese, but we work at it and we do it because we believe that it is what we have to offer to the body of Christ, that is our own practice of going out of our way to be connected to other places. And well, I hope you're as fortunate as I am to be able to have a taste of the variety of congregations in this diocese. But the variations on the Book of Common Prayer in the Diocese of Southern Ohio alone are just amazing. But those variations can also mean that we can be an irritation to one another. So the more that we can come together, and the more that we can have bishops who at least physically represent that larger picture, the better, because that's what we're really about. That's my long-winded answer to that.
Okay. Second question is, given the decreasing numbers of Episcopalians in the diocese and in the congregations, is there any consideration to reducing the number of lay delegates to the annual convention?
That has not been considered. That would be up to convention to debate and to vote on. It would be a question of diocesan bylaws, which it gives me the opportunity to remind all of us that despite the fact that we may seem rather hierarchical at times, we are a very democratic denomination. And all the major decisions that we make are decisions that are made through a democratic process. That's a really good and interesting question. My own personal opinion is that and this has to do with my commitment to connection and community, is the more the better. I think that convention itself is an opportunity where we're able to celebrate our relationship to one another, the fact that we are one body. So I would be sorry to see a diminished convention. I may say, in all transparency, that I'm sorry that we only have a one-day convention this year. I sat on my hands at the last convention and did not complain when convention voted to go to one day every other year, because I'm going to miss that extra opportunity for fellowship. So come Friday night, if you can.
This question is from Kathy Mank, who was one of the people that wrote a resolution from last year, R 2017-06, Sexual Harassment Policy Review and Implementation of Specific Training Programs. The resolution directed the bishop to form a task force and to report at the 2018 Diocesan Convention. Was the task force formed and a report submitted?
I wish my canon to the ordinary were here. I think that task force has not been formed yet. Is it even?
Let's see.
I would add, however, that we have not forgotten about that task force, and we have been talking about who might be appointed to it, but we're behind.
I do not see Lynn right now.
I was thinking, Lynn's in Columbus, so if she was
right
paying attention, she might have heard you say that you wishes that she
Are there any other questions?
There's no more per email. Did you get any more text?
No, I'm good.
Do you want to come up here so that I can put you on the camera? And
I'd rather not be on the camera, but it's okay. Where would you like me to stand? Just right here. Okay. Hi, my name is Ann Brack. I go to Ascension and Holy Trinity. Bishop, I was interested in your perspective on the beloved community and what, like, your dream the churches would do to be able to bring it to life. When Bishop Curry had announced the beloved community, I read all of it. I loved it. I thought it was wonderful, but I also didn't know how to engage in it being in a church that doesn't have a lot of diversity. And so it sounds like it's been morphing since it was introduced, and I'd like to know more about what the hope or objective of the proposal or the resolution would be if we fully adopted it and embraced it down to a parish level.
As Cherie Patrick said, we are proud recipients of a fairly significant United Flank Offering grant to, in response to a request for money to help us develop listening circles around the diocese, 5 or 6 or 7 in various parishes around the diocese that would concentrate on giving people the tools to be able to talk about difficult things, and not necessarily in a diverse environment, understanding, as Michael Curry himself constantly reminds us, that diversity is not only about race or gender or region, that each one of us brings diversity to any conversation, to the extent that we are able to go to a deep enough level to share things that may be painful to share. Histories of abuse, fear of abandonment, uncertainty about faith. These are all things that are a key, I think, to the church being able to move through this period of apparent diminishment and challenge in a culture that no longer rewards church personship. To become a community that knows how to listen and how to talk. So in this diocese, at any rate, every diocese in the Episcopal Church is doing something around the liturgy. And I think it's really taking off. But what we are doing is really focusing on listening circles. And the task force that has been mentioned several times has, in fact, just within the past week, identified a consultant who will be compensated from the UTO grant that we've received. I met just last week. It was amazing, and so who is now beginning to work to develop plans for those listening circles and to be playing a consultant role. I hope that it begins to respond to your question. I think one more thing I would say is that people of color often say that they shouldn't have to be around for us to be talking about these things. It's for those of us who are people of privilege for in whatever way. It is our gospel obligation to have some hard and painful conversations with children. So it's both. We want the diversity. We also want all of us, out of our own context, to find where the place of challenge and growth is for us.
One more question. Would these listening circles be concentrated on the people who are currently in the church? Or would it be an open invitation to the community around them?
That is a really great question. I don't know. I'm not on the task force. But you know, my sense would be yes. Always, the more the better. Follow Jesus into the neighborhood.
Bishop, I have a statement from your canon to the ordinary.
Goodness.
And she says, as the new canon to the ordinary, I am happy to pursue this resolution and provide some information relative to it going forward.
Thank you, Lynn. Anyone else?
May I add to the issue of the beloved community?
Yes.
If that's okay.
Can you come forward, please, so that other people can hear you?
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Next time I keep my mouth shut. Hi, Bishop. How are you?
I'm well.
Okay. I just want to add my 2 cents to the issue of being a beloved community. And I will use myself and St. Andrews as an example, and I hope it helps. When I've got to St. Andrews about
I'm going to interrupt you. To be really clear, it's St. Andrews in Cincinnati.
In Cincinnati, thank you. When I first got to St. Andrews in Cincinnati, one of the things that I did was to go into all the organizations and businesses around the church, and reintroduce St. Andrews and introduce myself. Let me tell you how I do that. I went to Xavier, I went to the gas station, I went to coffee shop, I went to all the businesses around the church, and I let them know my name is Father John, I'm going to be here for a while, and I will need you to connect with St. Andrews, and we want to connect with you. Well, let me summarize what has happened since. Since that time, St. Andrews has had a ministry with the university. We've had a connection with the gas station. We have walked from the church so that the community can see us physically in the street to the coffee shop. And we are part of the community where we are. About 2 or 3 days ago, we have Evans State celebrating their ministry or what they're doing in the community, like their mission. St. Andrews was invited. We bought about 2 tables. In other words, making your church available to the rest of the community so that they can come to you and you can go to them. And I'm going to say that, one of the things I always say is this: no church can exist as an island, no matter how wealthy and how many people you have. We need other people, and they need us. Amen?
Amen. Thank you, John. We are almost to 8:30. There might be time for one more question. Hearing none, I am actually going to invite us to stand for a closing prayer. I'm going to assume that people in Dayton and Columbus and Zanesville are standing with us. And let me thank all of you for your participation in this experiment. The Lord be with you. And also with you. Let us pray. O God, you have made of one people, you have made of one blood all the peoples of the earth. Send your Son, Jesus Christ, to preach peace to those who are far off and to those who are near. Grant that people everywhere may seek after you and find you. Bring the nations into your fold. Pour out your Spirit upon all flesh and hasten the coming of your kingdom. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Is there a Jesus? I meant to say, is there a deacon in the room? But I said, is there a Jesus? Is there a deacon? Carolyn, could you dismiss?
Peace, love, and serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God.